Guild Enforcer Vrox's compound eyes flickered with irritation as he reviewed the sensor data for the third time. His chitinous fingers clicked against a console in the rhythmic pattern his species used to express displeasure. The unauthorized signatures in Sector 749 Delta had been present for approximately 6 standard months, and somehow, impossibly, the Guild's extensive monitoring network had missed them until now. Enforcer Vrox, his deputy Kellis said, her feathered crest flattening in concern. This spectral analysis confirms industrial-scale mining operations, fusion signatures, refined metals, even what appears to be a small refinery. In a restricted development zone, Vrox said, his mandibles clicking, someone has deliberately violated Guild sovereignty. Prepare the enforcement fleet. We'll need at least 12 vessels to ensure compliance. The Galactic Commerce Guild had maintained order across 200 star systems for nearly 4,000 standard years. They didn't conquer worlds or impose ideology. They simply regulated trade, protected shipping lanes, and ensured that developing species didn't exploit resources before they were ready for galactic integration. It was a system that worked because everyone understood the rules. Or so Vrox had thought. The enforcement fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sector 749 Delta, and Vrox immediately knew something was very wrong. His sensors showed not just a mining operation, but a thriving industrial colony. Modular habitats dotted the larger asteroids, connected by transit tubes. Solar collectors and fusion reactors provided power. Cargo haulers moved between facilities with the efficiency of an established operation. Scan for life signs, Vrox ordered. Reading approximately 2,400 individuals, Kellis reported. Biometric signature unknown, not matching any registered Guild species. Unknown species? Vrox's antennae vibrated with surprise. That's impossible. We chart every developing civilization in this sector. Perhaps they're from outside Guild space, suggested Tactical Officer Bryn, a stocky silicon-based being whose crystalline structure refracted the bridge lights into rainbow patterns. Then they should have requested permission before establishing operations, Vrox said firmly. Kellis, open a standard first contact channel. Let's find out who they are and what they think they're doing here. The communication channel crackled to life, and a bipedal figure appeared on the view screen. The being had pale skin, dark hair tied back practically, and eyes that seemed to assess everything simultaneously. It wore a functional suit with insignia that meant nothing to Vrox. This is Colony Administrator Morgan Chen of the Terran Mining Consortium, the being said in perfect Guild standard. I assume you're here about the zoning dispute. Vrox's mandibles froze mid-click. You speak Guild standard? Of course, Chen replied with what might have been a smile. We've been monitoring your communication networks since we arrived. Your language has a fascinating grammatical structure, very logical once you understand the root morphology. You've been monitoring Guild communications? Vrox's antennae vibrated with surprise. That's a violation of Privacy Protocols, Section 447, Subsection 12, Chen interrupted. We're familiar with Guild regulations. We've had 6 months to study them. Quite comprehensive, really, though there are some interesting loopholes. Kellis leaned close to Vrox. Enforcer, how do they know Guild standard? Our databases show no record of their species. That's because you call us Pre-Contact Civilization 7731, Chen continued, apparently having heard Kellis's whisper. Earth, Sol System. You've had observation posts watching us for about 80 of our years. Vrox's chains froze immediately beneath him. Yes, the designation was familiar. A primitive world, still using chemical rockets, barely capable of reaching their own moon. They weren't supposed to have interstellar capability for another 200 years. That's impossible, Vrox said. Our last survey showed your species hasn't even developed fusion power. Your last survey was 4 years ago, Chen replied, and it was conducted from orbit using passive sensors. You never actually talked to us. If you had, you might have learned that humans are very good at showing people what they want to see. On Vrox's tactical display, Bryn was frantically running analysis. Enforcer, I'm picking up emissions that suggest these facilities have been here longer than 6 months, at least 3 years, possibly 5. 5 years? Vrox's voice rose. The Guild patrols this sector quarterly. How did we miss a colony for 5 years? Because we didn't want you to find us until we were ready, Chen said simply. Your patrol routes are predictable, your sensor frequencies are standardized, and your protocols prioritize efficiency over thoroughness. We studied your patterns and built accordingly. Vrox felt his certainty beginning to crack. This was supposed to be a simple enforcement action: remove unauthorized squatters, file the appropriate reports, return to headquarters. Instead, he was facing beings who had apparently been operating under the Guild's nose for years, who had learned their language by eavesdropping, and who seemed entirely too comfortable with this situation. Administrator Chen, Vrox said, forcing his voice to remain professional, regardless of how long you've been here, this is a restricted development zone. Under Guild Charter Article 23, I'm authorized to order your immediate evacuation. Article 23 applies to Guild member species and registered developing civilizations, Chen replied. We're neither. Earth has never been invited to join the Guild, never signed any treaties with the Guild, and technically operates outside Guild jurisdiction. All space within 500 light-years of Guild hub stations falls under Guild jurisdiction, Kellis interjected. According to Guild law, Chen agreed, but we don't recognize Guild law. No one ever asked us to. The logic was infuriating because it was technically correct. The Guild had always assumed that developing species would be eager to join once they achieved interstellar capability. The idea that a species might deliberately avoid contact and establish their own operations had never been seriously considered. You're saying you refuse to evacuate, Vrox said slowly. I'm saying we claim salvage rights, Chen corrected. This asteroid belt is the remains of a destroyed planet, natural disaster, approximately 400 million years ago, based on our geological analysis. No current inhabitants, no prior claims filled with any authority we recognize. Under maritime law, which humans have been developing for thousands of years, abandoned resources and unclaimed territory belong to whoever has the capability to use them. Maritime law? Vrox's antennae twitched in confusion. Rules governing ships and resources on Earth's oceans, Chen explained. Humans have been arguing about territorial rights and salvage claims since we had writing. We're very good at it. Bryn's crystalline structure flashed urgently. Enforcer, I'm picking up emissions that suggest these facilities have been here longer than 6 months, at least 3 years, possibly 5. 5 years? Vrox's voice rose. The Guild patrols the sector quarterly. How did we miss a colony for 5 years? Because we didn't want you to find us until we were ready, Chen said simply. Your patrol routes are predictable, your sensor frequencies are standardized, and your protocols prioritize efficiency over thoroughness. We studied your patterns and built accordingly. Vrox felt his certainty beginning to crack. This was supposed to be a simple enforcement action: remove unauthorized squatters, file the appropriate reports, return to headquarters. Instead, he was facing beings who had apparently been operating under the Guild's nose for years, who had learned their language by eavesdropping, and who seemed entirely too comfortable with the situation. Administrator Chen, Vrox said, forcing his voice to remain professional. Regardless of how long you've been here, this is a restricted development zone. Under Guild Charter Article 23, I'm authorized to order your immediate evacuation. Article 23 applies to Guild member species and registered developing civilizations, Chen replied. We're neither. Earth has never been invited to join the Guild, never signed any treaties with the Guild, and technically operates outside Guild jurisdiction.
All space within 500 light-years of Guild hub stations falls under Guild jurisdiction, Kellis interjected. According to Guild law, Chen agreed, but we don't recognize Guild law. No one ever asked us to. The logic was infuriating because it was technically correct. The Guild had always assumed that developing species would be eager to join once they achieved interstellar capability. The idea that a species might deliberately avoid contact and establish their own operations had never been seriously considered. "You're saying you refuse to evacuate," Vrox said slowly. "I'm saying we claim salvage rights," Chen corrected. "This asteroid belt is the remains of a destroyed planet, natural disaster, approximately 400 million years ago, based on our geological analysis. No current inhabitants, no prior claims filled with any authority we recognize. Under maritime law, which humans have been developing for thousands of years, abandoned resources and unclaimed territory belong to whoever has the capability to use."
Then perhaps it's time the Guild updated its policies, Chen suggested. The galaxy is full of developing species who will reach the stars eventually. You can either maintain your current approach and face more situations like this, or you can adapt to reality. Kellis spoke quietly. "Enforcer, Guild High Command is demanding a status report. They want to know why we haven't secured the sector." Vrax looked at the tactical display showing the human colony, at the files documenting Guild corruption, at Administrator Chen's calm face on the view screen. He had thought this would be simple. He had been catastrophically wrong. "Tell High Command," Vrax said slowly, "that the situation is more complex than initially assessed. We require guidance on how to proceed with first contact protocols for a species that has achieved interstellar capability through non-standard development." "First contact?" Kellis looked confused. "But that's what this is," Vrox interrupted. "Regardless of how long they've been watching us, this is the Guild's first official contact with humans. We should treat it as such." Chen's expression shifted to something that might have been respect. "A pragmatic decision, Enforcer Vrox. I think we can work with pragmatism." "Don't mistake pragmatism for acceptance," Vrox replied. "The Guild Council will review this situation, and they may decide to take action regardless of your leverage." "Then we'll deal with that when it happens," Chen said. "But in the meantime, would you like to tour our facilities? I think you'll be impressed with what we've accomplished. We've even made some improvements to standard Guild mining technology, more efficient extraction rates, better safety protocols. We'd be happy to share the innovations." Vrax's antennae quivered. The humans had improved Guild's technology? That should have been impossible. Guild engineering was the result of millennia of development across dozens of species. "I'll accept your invitation, but I'm also requesting immediate reinforcements. This situation requires more authority than an enforcement fleet can provide." "Of course," Chen agreed. "We expected as much. We'll be here when they arrive. We're not going anywhere." As the communication ended, Bryn approached Vrax nervously. "Enforcer, what do we do now?" "We do exactly what the humans suggested. We wait, we observe, and we prepare a very detailed report for the Guild Council, because something tells me that Administrator Chen and her colony are going to change everything about how the Guild operates." Through the viewport, the human colony continued its operations, mining and refining with an efficiency that spoke of long practice and careful planning. Somewhere in those facilities were 2,400 beings who had managed to operate undetected in Guild space for years, who had cracked Guild encryption, who had studied Guild laws and found their weaknesses. Vrax had been an enforcer for 40 standard years. He had dealt with smugglers, pirates, and rogue colonies, but he had never encountered anything like this. The humans weren't criminals trying to avoid Guild law. They were competitors who had studied the system and found ways to operate outside it. And judging by the confidence in Administrator Chen's voice, this colony was just the beginning. Vrax initiated an encrypted transmission to Guild headquarters marked with the highest priority codes. The message was simple but would send shockwaves through the council.
First contact with previously unregistered spacefaring species achieved. Species designation, human. Origin, Earth, Sol system. Status, actively hostile to Guild authority but willing to negotiate. Immediate council session recommended. Situation unprecedented. Advise on how to proceed. As he sent the message, Frax couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to become a much more complicated place. The age of Guild's dominance might not be ending, but it was certainly being challenged in ways no one had anticipated. And the worst part? The humans seemed to have planned for exactly this scenario, which meant they had plans for whatever came next as well. Fleet Commander Xyloth lived for 180 standard years, served in the Guild Navy for 150 of them, and commanded enforcement operations across 30 sectors. His amphibious body shifted comfortably in the gel-filled command chair as he reviewed the reports from Enforcer Vrax with growing disbelief. They threatened Guild vessels? Xyloth's throat sac inflated with indignation. These humans? To Enforcer Vrax's report, they've been operating in Guild space for up to 5 years, his intelligence officer Mira said. The feline-featured alien's ears flattened as she continued. They've cracked our encryption, monitored our communications, and somehow acquired enough technological knowledge to pose a credible defensive threat. Xyloth's webbed fingers drummed against his console. One mining colony with primitive technology. We're bringing 40 warships. This should be resolved in hours. Commander, Vrax recommended caution. Vrax is an enforcer, not a military strategist. He sees a colony with defensive weapons and assumes they're dangerous. I see a pre-contact civilization that got lucky with some scavenged technology. There's a difference. The Guild response fleet had assembled with impressive speed. 40 vessels ranging from light frigates to heavy cruisers, carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. The Guild Council was clear in their orders: secure the sector, evacuate the human colony, and demonstrate that Guild authority was absolute. Xyloth had no intention of failing. As his fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sector 749 Delta, tactical displays immediately lit up with contacts. The human colony was still there, still operating, and now Xyloth could see it in full detail. The operation was far more extensive than initial reports suggested. Tactical assessment, he ordered. His weapons officer, Kren, a heavily armored reptilian species, worked his console efficiently. 47 defensive platforms distributed throughout the asteroid belt, energy signatures consistent with railguns and missile batteries. No energy shields detected on any installation. No shields? Xyloth's throat sac deflated slightly. They're completely exposed? Apparently, Kren confirmed. Either they lack shield technology or chose not to implement it.
Mira's ears perked up. Commander, that seems inconsistent with their reported technical sophistication. Or it confirms their primitives with stolen weapons, Xyloth replied. Broadcast standard evacuation orders. Give them 2 hours to power down their installations and prepare for transport. The communication went out on all frequencies. Xyloth expected either immediate compliance or desperate threats. What he got was neither. Guild Fleet Commander Xyloth, a human voice responded. This is Defense Coordinator Sarah Okonkwo. We received your evacuation order. We're declining. On the view screen appeared a woman with dark skin, close-cropped hair, and eyes that seemed to calculate trajectories even as she spoke. She wore a practical military-style uniform with no ceremonial ornamentation. You're declining? Xyloth felt his body temperature rise. This isn't a request. This is a lawful order from Guild Naval Command. And as Administrator Chen explained to Enforcer Vrax, we don't recognize Guild authority over this sector, Okonkwo replied calmly. We're willing to negotiate a peaceful resolution, but evacuation isn't on the table. Then you leave me no choice, Xyloth said. All defensive installations in this sector will be neutralized. Non-combatants will be taken into Guild custody pending— Commander, Okonkwo interrupted, Before you commit to this course of action, I need to inform you that we've been tracking your fleet since you entered the sector. 40 vessels, standard guild naval configuration, predictable formation patterns. Siloth's throat sac inflated dangerously. You're monitoring guild military vessels? We're monitoring everything within 50 million kilometers. It's called situational awareness. You should try it. Mira leaned close to Xyloth. Commander, her confidence is concerning. She's not exhibiting any fear responses. Because she's bluffing, Xyloth said, though uncertainty crept into his voice. All vessels, battle stations, prepare to engage defensive platforms on my mark. On his tactical display, the guild fleet moved into attack formation. It was a standard maneuver, perfected over centuries of enforcement actions. Overwhelming force applied systematically to neutralize resistance with minimal risk. Commander, Kren said suddenly, I'm detecting movement throughout the asteroid belt. The rocks themselves are shifting position. Shifting? Siloth stared at his display. Dozens of asteroids were indeed moving, their trajectories changing in ways that should have been impossible without massive thruster arrays. Those aren't natural asteroids, Mira said, her voice tight. They're hollowed out and fitted with propulsion systems. The entire belt is mobile. Okonkwo's image smiled slightly. You noticed. Good. We call them kinetic platforms. Asteroids are cheap, abundant, and when accelerated to sufficient velocity, they don't need sophisticated weapons. Basic physics does all the work. Xyloth felt cold realization wash over him. The humans hadn't built defensive platforms. They'd turned the entire asteroid belt into a weapon. You can't maneuver asteroids. The energy requirements are significant but manageable with efficient fusion reactors and patient engineering. We've had 3 years to prepare. We used the time wisely. All vessels, evasive pattern Delta, Siloth ordered. His fleet began spreading out, trying to present less concentrated targets. Too late, Okonkwo said quietly. On Xyloth's display, 30 asteroids suddenly accelerated towards his fleet, not randomly, but in coordinated attack vectors that suggested sophisticated targeting systems and predictive algorithms. Return fire, Siloth ordered. Destroy those asteroids before they reach our formation. The guild fleet opened up with plasma cannons and energy weapons. Several asteroids disintegrated under the barrage, but others kept coming. And for every asteroid destroyed, 2 more launched from deeper in the belt. They're using the asteroids as cover, Kren reported. Our targeting systems can't lock onto the platforms behind them. A massive asteroid struck the frigate Resolute amidships. Guild shields held, but the kinetic impact sent the vessel tumbling. 2 more asteroids followed, hammering the same shield facing until it collapsed. The 4th asteroid penetrated the hull. Resolute is venting atmosphere, Mira reported. They're evacuating to life pods. Siloth stared in disbelief. A guild warship had been disabled by rocks. Rocks that primitives had somehow turned into precision weapons. All vessels concentrate fire on the platforms themselves. Ignore the asteroids. Target the installations, he ordered. Adjusting fire, Crane confirmed. The guild fleet redirected its weapons towards the defensive platforms scattered throughout the belt. Energy beams and missiles lanced through space towards their targets. And missed. Explain that, Siloth demanded. The platforms are moving, Kren said, confusion evident in his voice. Stationary defensive platforms don't dodge. Ours don't, Okonkwo's voice came through the comm. We prefer a more dynamic approach to defense. Also, you might want to check your sensors. We just launched something new. Siloth's tactical display showed hundreds of small signatures emerging from the colony's central hub. They moved with irregular, almost random trajectories that made tracking difficult. What are those? He demanded. Drones, Okonkwo replied. Unmanned, autonomous, expendable. We build them from asteroid materials, so they cost almost nothing. How much does one of your frigates cost, Commander? The drones swarmed towards the guild fleet like a cloud of metallic insects. They were small, fast, and numerous enough that point defense systems couldn't target them all.
They're attaching to our hulls, Kren reported. Hundreds of them. What do they do? He got his answer when the drones began discharging electromagnetic pulses. Individually, each pulse was negligible, but hundreds of them firing simultaneously created cascading interference across Guild systems. We're losing sensor resolution, Mira reported. Communications are degrading, navigation systems showing errors. They're jamming us, Xyloth realized. Pull back to minimum safe distance. We need to clear these drones before... The asteroid belt suddenly launched a coordinated volley. 50 asteroids, all precisely targeted at vessels whose sensors were compromised. The Guild fleet tried to respond, but without clear targeting data, their defensive fire was ineffective. 3 more ships took heavy damage. The destroyer Vigilant lost all power. The cruiser Steadfast's engines went offline. Across the fleet, vessels reported systems failures, hull breaches, and casualties. Commander, we need to withdraw, Mira said urgently. We have 40 ships, Xyloth's throat sac pulsed with rage. They have rocks and drones. They have tactics we've never encountered and weapons we underestimated, Mira countered. We're fighting on their terms, in their territory, against a species that apparently specializes in unconventional warfare. On the view screen, a Conquest waited patiently. Commander Xyloth, you're losing ships unnecessarily. We don't want to kill anyone, we just want you to understand that we're serious about defending our operations. You're attacking Guild naval vessels, Xyloth said through clenched jaws. That's an act of war. You came here with 40 warships to forcibly evacuate our colony. We're responding with appropriate defensive measures. There's a difference. Another alarm sounded. Multiple ships reporting boarding pods attached to their hulls, small craft that launched during the chaos. Boarding pods? Xyloth felt control slipping away. They're boarding our vessels? Affirmative. They're not breaching, they're just attached, waiting. Okonkwo nodded on screen. Insurance, Commander. If this escalates further, those pods can cut through your hulls and deploy assault teams. Teams trained specifically in zero-gravity combat and ship boarding procedures. We'd rather not use them, but we're prepared to if necessary. Xyloth looked at his battered fleet, at the asteroid belt still bristling with kinetic weapons, at the humans who had somehow turned every disadvantage into an advantage. What do you want? He asked quietly. For you to stop trying to evacuate us, for the Guild to recognize that we have legitimate operations here, and for everyone to understand that humans might be new to the galaxy, but we're not unprepared for it. The Guild Council will never accept this. Then the Guild Council should prepare for more situations like this, Okonkwo replied, because Earth has 12 more colonies scattered across uncharted systems, all of them as well defended as this one, all of them operating under the assumption that we'll be underestimated. 12 colonies. Xyloth felt the weight of that revelation. If each one was as sophisticated as this operation, if each one had been preparing for years. How long have humans been planning this? He asked. Since we first detected Guild observation posts in our solar system 80 years ago, Okonkwo replied. We knew we weren't alone. We knew you were watching, so we made sure that when we finally went to the stars, we'd be ready for whatever we found. Mira approached Xyloth's command chair. Commander, Engineer Andrew James from the colony is requesting communication. He says he can help us remove the drones from our ships. Help us? Xyloth's confusion was complete. They attacked us, and now they want to help us? We attacked you defensively, came a new voice. On a secondary screen appeared a man with gray hair, oil-stained hands, and a friendly smile. I'm James Reeves, Chief Engineer for the colony.